Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Left Wing. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given, joined as always by the Italian stallion, John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics. How you doing today, my friend?
Doing great, but not Italian at all. That is a common misconception. I'm simply a mix of Irish and Jewish, which sometimes looks Italian depending on how the genes play out.
John, have you noticed that these nicknames don't have anything to do with you at all over this time?
Have you noticed that my response usually isn't relevant?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know why I started doing this. I feel like it was maybe 2 months ago. I just start throwing random nicknames at John, and I don't know. I'm going to keep doing it, folks. I've actually got a list of all the names I've used, and I've got ones that are going to be using coming up for the next few weeks. So I'm going to do this till I get bored. I don't care if anyone else gets bored of it, but I have a lot of fun. So yeah, we're having a good time today, John. We have a special guest today, do we not?
We do. It is our Tuesday Q&A show. It's usually just us, but we have a recurring guest that wanted to come on, and we were like, well, we've been responsible and we've booked out for the next 8 weeks here. So how about you come on a Tuesday? Speaking of Italian stallions, give it up for Natalie Benvenga.
So
I accept.
How do you think about that? That's funny because actually I try to make the nickname match, either the guest or the topic. But I didn't think about the Italian part. Yeah, that's good right there.
Works for me. I've been called a lot worse, so this works.
Yeah, all right. Natalie, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Natalie, I mean, she goes back to the original iteration of the show, actually, like a very long time ago. So we're going to also do something where we introduce our guests and show a little bit of their work. So this is a clip from Natalie that I brought. I saw a little earlier today, and I thought, so let's go with it.
See this bottle of water? This bottle of water cost me $6 over the weekend when I was working somewhere and I needed water. $6. Okay, let's put this into perspective. So this bottle of water is basically an hour of labor at the minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour. And if you remove taxes, you're going to be under $6 your take-home pay. So one bottle of water is equal to an hour of your labor at the federal minimum wage, also known as a starvation wage. I can taste the exploitation. This has got to stop. Raise the minimum wage now.
Natalie, that was, would you mind giving us a little backstory on where you found yourself that it cost? Were you at an airport or something? $6
No,
for a
I
bottle of
wasn't.
water? What happened? Yeah.
So I was hosting a radio show, and we were doing a live show down at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, which is this big convention center in Pittsburgh, and it was during the Home and Gardens show. So people from all over the region come for this Home and Garden show. And I was with my producer, and he said to me, hey, if you need to get water, good luck, because I can't find a fountain. And I was like, what, are we in grade school? I'm just going to go buy a bottle of water. And he's like, it's $6. And I was like, you're lying. So I was like, no, I'm going to go prove you wrong. And of course I was totally wrong. So I went over, and at that point I had to buy it. So I went over, and all the bottles of water, the Aquafina aluminum bottle was the only one they were selling. And it was $6.50 or something when it came with tax. I was so disgusted that I drank a little bit of it, but I kept it because I was just like, I'm going to talk about this because I started thinking about how upsetting it was that we're now equating a bottle of water, which people deserve to have water. There should be water fountains in public spaces like convention centers. It should be readily available. You should be able to get a cup of water from a vendor there. This should not be a thing. The fact that they were doing that for $6.50, it just really pissed me off. And so hence the video that I made.
I remember, Natalie, I made a whole video about my drinking water was coming out like crap. It looked terrible. But it wasn't actually anything wrong with it. I made a whole video about how hey, we have to pay for this on our end as civilians. It's probably from these corporations polluting. People commented, and they're like, oh, actually, that's just a thing that's happening nearby. It doesn't danger you at all. And I was just like, God damn it. It was doing well too. It had 25,000 views in the first hour. And I was like, oh, God, I have to take that down.
God. Oh, God.
That's a rough go. That's
Damn
that fact checking. Damn it.
Water as a topic, just in case. That's
yeah.
That is a true first world content creator problem, and I love that so much. I'm here for it, John. I'm here for it. It reminded me of I did a video about John F. Kennedy and his older brother. Well, where did that come from? His older brother, Joseph Kennedy Jr. And the whole video was about the kind of the friendly competition they had with each other that carried on to when they were both in World War II. And during World War II, there's a really cool story of John F. Kennedy in which his boat was hit by a Japanese cruiser or something. It was just like slammed into it. It was it was a tiny boat. And it was him and maybe 6 or 8 of his guys that were under his command. And they were 2 miles away from the nearest land. And they swam there. But one of the guys was injured, and JFK grabbed the strap from his flotation device, his life jacket, and dragged him 2 miles to the hell. It is a crazy story. And then he went out to sea at night to try to find passing ships and everything. They ended up island hopping till they found this native group population that he thought that these folks would have had access to run across allies somewhere. So he just wrote their coordinates on a seashell and gave it to the guy. And the allies ended up finding them. And he was awarded a medal. His brother tried to top that feat, ended up getting himself killed doing it and leaving the family name to his loser little brother no one expected anything from. But anyway, I did this whole video and I mentioned how his older brother, or John F. Kennedy, won the Navy Cross for his award for his actions. And this video, one of the best videos I ever did, within an hour, it had 100,000 views in 1 hour. And I was like, oh, Jesus, great. And then someone said, hey, he didn't win the Navy Cross in that. And I looked it up. He didn't. He got the Navy Marine medal, the one step below, and it bugged the shit out of me. It bugged me.
That would have bothered me. I would have had to have.
I deleted the video. Yeah. I deleted the video, reshot it. Actually, I reshot that one part. It's he won the Navy Marine medal, and the video still did fine. But God, it still bothers me. It bothers me that much. The integrity gets you, folks. The integrity gets you every time.
It's not fun being over here on that side of integrity.
Yeah, right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. So,
if I didn't have integrity, I could be the press secretary right now. But alas.
Boy. Oh, I don't know how to describe that lady. That lady is she's great.
She's trash.
She's great at her job. When your job is to be just to announce endless and uncritical praise for the Holy Father. There you go. That's what's up. Speaking of Holy Fathers, John.
Speaking of Holy Fathers, I wanted to say one thing about Caroline Leavitt first, because I want to just stake this claim right now because I haven't heard anyone else say it. I'm not entirely sure about it.
Okay.
But she looks more stressed every time I see her. You know how the presidency ages people very visibly? I'm already, if you look at the pictures of her when she was sworn in versus now, I don't know if it's the weird supervillain lighting they're giving her for some reason. That could be it. But she just, if I was her, I would be so stressed.
You know what it is? You know what you're picking up on?
Yeah.
This is my guess because I've noticed this too. I think she's real puffy because I think Chardonnay has become her best friend after work. And I think she's to try to numb this because she's gotten progressively puffier during this whole experience. At least that's how I'm noticing. And that's that stress, that cortisol. I think it's from drinking and being the right hand of the devil, basically.
It's hard to do. People don't understand how hard it is to lie constantly every day. I know we're used to it from politicians and stuff that they lie, and that is part of the job of a press secretary is to lie.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But the volume
massage
is so and the intensity is just so insane on a day-to-day basis. It just has to break you at some point.
Yeah. I think that's why they go through so many of them. I mean, a normal administration, that's one of, you said, it's one of the hardest gigs. And I think, for whatever reason, I think she thought she had some girl boss energy and was going to just, be able to override that. And it's not happening because you're right. She's only what, 26?
Yeah. She's not old.
I mean, she's looking older than that. And I definitely think it's from the chaos, the stress. And I'm sure she would never we would never know this, but people like Trump and like probably like her husband, they're yellers. I'm sure she's getting yelled at a lot. And, you know,
couldn't happen to a better person.
It couldn't happen to a better
Couldn't
person,
happen.
but that wears on you too. You know, the constant berating and belittling. I mean, let's be real. This is not sunshine and roses backstage.
Natalie,
Hell
are
no.
you implying that the Trump administration might have a hostile work environment for young women?
Yes.
I could not imagine.
Yes, I am. I'm not implying, I'm outright saying it. This is a bad place for women.
Yeah.
They don't want us there, and it's very clear. Yeah.
Yeah, getting yelled at's not so bad. I was in the military. It's fine. You'll make it. You'll be fine. Trust me. It'll be
Oh,
okay.
well, you should, if you like that, TJ, you should marry an Italian woman.
I should marry an
You'd be very
Italian woman?
happy.
No, but you only get yelled at if you do something wrong. I mean, I know women. They
TJ
would never yell at you
Yeah.
if you do something wrong, incorrect. So yeah, I'd be fine. I'd be perfectly good. I want to huge ass. I swear we were 20 seconds late. I mean,
Yeah, you said that at 6:36. That's not fair. We'd
6:36
already
on the
started
note,
when I saw
man.
that
Yeah,
comment.
okay, all right. I thought for sure we got on time. But okay, like we were saying, speaking of Holy Fathers, John, I hear some bad things happened in the Catholic Church a few days ago. What happened?
I had such a fun day yesterday, TJ. It was such a perfect cavalcade of events because not only did the Pope die, which, by the way, Pope Francis, in terms of popes, probably the best one, maybe the best to ever do.
Whoa, hey.
But like also you're competing against some of the worst people.
It's
to ever
also the
exist.
Pope. Yeah.
So yeah, like again, he's also the head of the world's largest pedophile ring. So like, you know, you gotta take the good with the bad here. So am I celebrating the Pope dying? No. Is it very funny when the Pope dies? Yes, it is. And I think it cannot have been funnier than dying 12 hours after meeting with JD Vance. He held it in there just long enough to tell off JD Vance and then skedaddle into his afterlife. Like I cannot emphasize how much I was laughing when I woke up on Monday morning and I saw that, and I was hammering it hard and people were loving it on my threads. I had such a good time yesterday just making fun of JD Vance. And then last night I saw Conclave is releasing on Amazon Prime today. Oh my God, the conspiracy theories we could write are just, again, all of this, you know, totally isn't real. There's no way JD Vance actually killed the Pope because Jeff Bezos put out a hit on him to increase revenue for Amazon Prime Video. That totally didn't happen. It doesn't really happen. You know, Kilmar Abrego Garcia isn't an MS-13 gang member either. So we're well past having to care about what truth is on this show. Natalie, as an Italian, I'm sure you have some thoughts on this story as well.
I do. And I was Catholic. I was raised Catholic.
Shit.
The whole thing. I was the first altar girl in my church because I went to the priest and I said, "This isn't fair." And then he was like, "All right, leave me alone. Like, you can do it," after I badgered him enough. So I have deep roots to the Catholic Church. I've also given up the Catholic Church many years ago when I started getting hit on by the priest. Then that was the end of that.
Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. What?
Oh, yeah.
Natalie.
Oh, yeah.
How old were you?
Yeah.
13.
Same.
Oh, great. We can start a support group. I think they have one of those. So there's no love lost here, but I do feel like I have an understanding of the workings of these spaces. And I will say, and to your point, John, and I know how TJ obviously feels about all of the religious stuff, but in terms of popes, I thought it was interesting that he didn't want to meet with JD Vance, that he was wanting him to be schooled on compassion. This was a pope that was calling the only Catholic church in Gaza daily. He had called for a ceasefire. So, you know, obviously two things can be true at once, like we were talking about. But I do think he called and brought attention to things that a lot of his predecessors just didn't or wouldn't have. So when he passed, I thought he had maybe died from complications from his pneumonia because he had pneumonia. And then when I looked up his cause of death, it seemed like he had a cerebral hemorrhage, basically a stroke. So that to me was really interesting, that the stress of meeting JD Vance made him stroke out in the middle of the night because I don't know if you guys saw the image of them actually meeting, but the Pope did the thing my grandmother used to do when she didn't want to acknowledge someone. She would barely give them her hand. It was like, oh, a grandma burn. Like, I'm going to shake your hand, but I'm not really. And this is my protest. The Pope looked like he was like barely wanting to touch this man. And so I do think that meeting him triggered something in him that he just went that night. I mean, it is weird. It's weird. And who else would want to be around JD Vance? Nobody. So it doesn't surprise me that he's like, and now I'm checking out. I'm done with all you people. This sucks. I didn't want to meet him, and now I'm leaving.
Can hardly blame the guy. I actually was expressing surprise, Natalie, when you said that a Catholic priest hit on you
You're surprised.
for the fact you're not being a male. That's the part that actually caught me off guard. I would have not expected that. John's not so much, of course. I mean, yeah, of course, obviously.
I'm such an adorable child. How
right, yeah, I can hardly blame the guy. But Jay, someone wrote the comment over here. Shit. Oh yeah. Brendan B said, imagine going to bed at night, thinking about your day as you fall asleep, dying, and having one of your last thoughts be about JD Vance. That's what
I'm saying. I think he thought of him and had a stroke.
Yeah.
It's like that. He
was like that jerk, and it was just like, ugh.
In my duties of Pope, I've met with thousands, if not millions of people. I've never had such an awkward conversation as the one I had with JD Vance. It's quite vexing, and oh my goodness, I'm having a hemorrhage.
Yeah. I do. All jokes aside, I do have to think about that when considering this, because I feel really bad for someone who's of greatly advanced age at this moment.
Yeah.
Because they very possibly could die during the second Trump administration. And if I was someone who was like in a position like the Pope, where I had been a community and spiritual and religious leader for decades at this point, it's like, wow, all the work I've put into this. And JD Vance is vice president of the United States. That would millions of Catholics in the United States voted for JD Vance. It would be hard to keep the spirit going after that.
And he's Catholic.
And he's Catholic. But you know what, though, TJ? If perhaps the church would have actually followed what the Pope said a lot, which was following the teachings of Christ, which is house the unhoused, clothe the people that need clothes, take in the refugee, feed the poor, like do those things, maybe we wouldn't have gotten to a point where someone like Trump and Vance could have come into power. So maybe the church does need to like take a good hard look at itself outside of the disgusting sexual issues and actually also look at their core messaging, because obviously this is not resonating with people. And have you guys actually been espousing and promoting the teachings of Christ, or has it just been surface level for the past 30 years? Because I think we're now seeing a little bit of this.
Yeah.
I
have a question for you guys, since you're more familiar with the Catholic Church than I am, about what Natalie just said, in that, especially with John and I think we'd always talk about the adult converts to Christianity, how they terrify us more than or Catholicism specifically. It seems like people who convert to evangelicalism, weird, man. You start going up the liturgical ladder. It's like, I'm 41 years old and I've decided to become Greek Orthodox. Like, really? Wow, that's kind of terrifying. But what you mentioned, that if people would have listened to the stuff this Pope said, because he seemed like a more chill bro and everything, how is it that Catholics can do that, where they say, actually, no, I think the Pope is wrong? Isn't that his whole thing? Like infallibility? Isn't that when he's talking about matters of scripture? How is that even possible?
So here's the thing, TJ. This might come as a surprise to you, but a lot of religious people don't hold logically consistent beliefs.
All right, gotcha.
Yes, you're right.
TJ, sit down. We're gonna have to tell you something here.
The Pope, when speaking on matters of doctrine and morality, is infallible according to the Catholic Church. You are supposed to believe that he is as infallible as he's speaking directly on God's behalf. The fact that there's disagreement within the Catholic Church on that issue, or any issue the Pope speaks on, is sacrosanct. Like it is a sin, honestly. Like they
Mhm.
don't actually believe. Then that's why I always say, like, they don't actually believe. This is one of the first things that, like, I was just like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. First of all, popes have contradicted each other throughout history.
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. And
Mhm.
B, the current pope is saying the opposite of what my priest is preaching right now, and that doesn't make any sense, because I understand if I'm hypocritical, like, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
The average everyday church going Catholics are hypocritical, whatever. The insane part is that, like, the clergy is hypocritical about this. Like, they're like, oh no, the Pope is wrong about that, and it's like, but he can't be. And if you're picking and choosing which parts of your scripture you're going to say are correct or not, how is any of it real? How do you have faith in any of it if you don't have faith in this part? That never made sense to me.
Yeah. I also think that, so like I said, I grew up Catholic, and then some of my friends were like Christian. And of course, according to my grandmother, they were nothing alike. We are not Christians, we're Catholics, right? So there was always this like weird divide, okay? But what I found interesting was when I would go to church, and I went every single Sunday until I was about 13, 14 years old, my priest at my parish was a little old man named Father Blau, and he only spoke of compassion every week. So growing up, my experience in the Catholic Church was very much like we volunteered, we did food banks, we did all that stuff. When I went to my friends, like the born again, the non-denominational, that was when I was like, holy shit, I had no idea this breed of Christian existed, where I got thrown out of a youth group because I told the pastor that speaking in tongues was blasphemous, because he starts speaking in tongues in front of a bunch of like 14-year-olds, and like, you've got a bunch of kids sobbing and crying. It was psychotic. So it was that, and then all the anti-homosexual stuff that they were spewing at the time in like the late 90s. And it was shocking to me. And I'm not saying that like in other Catholic churches, they, didn't become more conservative in their values and how they espouse them to be. But growing up, that was not my experience. So when I saw non-denominational Christians acting completely unhinged and completely, in my regard at the time, very unchristian, like, it was so shocking to me that they could even call themselves, pastors or priests. And then that's when I learned about proximity to power, and really it was all about power. And then of course, I got my own lessons from other experiences as well. But I do think that it's individual in terms of who your priest was. Like, our priest was there for, I think, 50 years at our church, and that was the only church I ever really went to. So it was really specific to my community too, which is really just kind of fascinating. It wasn't this mega church experience like there are now, where it's televised and becomes almost like a celebrity situation, where I think they feel they can lean more into these kinds of nasty rhetorics.
Yeah, and it's probably pretty fun for them too. They get off on it. Like,
yeah.
I bet they love it. I bet they love that shit. And I know, God, I know I would. I know I would if I were in that position. All right. And
TJ, I want to address some. I want to address some of the comments here about papal infallibility. So Kyle says papal infallibility only applies to specific scenarios. There needs to be a call for synod, days of prayer, then papal announcement. There only happened once today. The Virgin Mary was sinless. I don't believe that's true. Like, because what Mark says next. Please, must we speak from things they don't know? First of all, Mark, I was born and raised in the Catholic Church, bro. So was Natalie. I was a very studious child.
John, hold on. You have to be fair. Mark is an expert about about speaking about things he doesn't know anything about. So
that's true.
That's true.
About that. And he says when he speaks ex cathedra, from the chair, not anytime he's speaking about morality, doctrine, etc. Yes, that's true. But that doesn't really address what I said, in that he has spoken ex cathedra. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Well, ex cathedra, I mean, that from the chair, that just means from a position of authority, right? I mean, that's just.
And to be like much more blunt about this, the things that he would say, such as, gay people can go to heaven. I believe that was ex cathedra. Like, am I wrong? I left the church well before a lot of this shit happened. But I just remember like my priest shit talking the Pope, And that, yeah, not like, the way we should talk each other here, but he was like, yeah, and the Pope is wrong about this. Like, whoa, that's pretty wild. My favorite, the one of the ones that set me off was what my priest was talking about, like the sin of lust and all this and how all these people are going to hell. And he's talking about the deadly sins. Now, this guy was a little bit of a bowling ball, and I noticed that he left out gluttony in that.
Interesting.
And I asked my mom why he didn't mention that. She was not too pleased about it. But I also got thrown out of a youth group, but that was also in the Catholic Church. They didn't like how many questions I was asking.
There it is.
They don't like questions around there.
They don't like that.
No.
I do have
why
a
none
question.
of us are religious now.
So I do have a question, not a question, but a comment about the deadly sins thing and the ignoring them. I don't know if it was like this in Catholic Church. I don't know, but in Protestant churches and in Baptist churches, one thing that the pastors love to do is they would talk about the commandment to not work on the Sabbath, which is Saturday or not Sunday, but whatever. We pretend it's Sunday. So they said that. One of the commandments that's hard for me to follow is to not work on the Sabbath. I am such a hard worker. I wake up dreaming of work, and when it's Sunday, I got to get out there. And then the Lord reminds me, no, you got to do that. I have a hard time following that commandment. That was always really funny to me because how many other sins would they do that with? Like like lust. Could you imagine about, man, it is so difficult for me not to be lusting left and right. I have a hard time keeping pure thoughts. I just can't do it. I'm trying my best. Like, no, you would never do that. But they always try to flex how hard of a worker they were. I don't know. It's just so disingenuous. It's gross. I can't believe it. And let's see. Oh shit. I thought there was a. I thought that was another question I was going to ask here, but yeah, the Pope. So, do you guys know? Once again, not well versed in Catholicism here. Do we know? Is there a list of cardinals that they're ready to pick for the Pope? Oh, Natalie, what you got?
There is. I don't. I'm sorry, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I was looking at the list.
Imagine Natalie just rattle off 180, but like
I don't know why I just apologized for that.
She's Italian. It's just they do it.
Yeah, like Pope list. No, I read that there was a few that they do have in mind. One of them was from the United States, and he, of course, leaned more conservative, which was disappointing. Apparently, there's one that gay Catholics are all excited about, and he's from the Philippines because I heard that he is trending more moderate liberal. So there are some different factions within the Catholic faith, which I always find fascinating, right? With any group of people that you have sort of who's leaning which way to the left or the right. And then what I read today was that the rumor is most likely they're going to pick someone that brings them back to more of the ideological center, because there was a lot of grumblings that this Pope was much too liberal. And it made me laugh because, if Jesus came back, if you believed in him in the first place, but if he came back, they'd just kill him all over again. I mean, the idea that this Pope is leaning too liberal when he's talking about, stopping the bombing of children, right? When he's talking about not being a hypocrite with your compassion towards people, when he's talking about embracing the other, embracing refugees, accepting, allowing gay people to accept communion, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but in the Catholic Church is a really big deal. These are all the teachings of Jesus in the sense of embracing the stranger, embracing the other. And the idea that they want to move back to the ideological center is so interesting to me because it really seems to be mirroring what's happening politically around the world, where we're freaking out about, these progressives trying to wreck everything with their DEI. So we got to move everybody back to the center with these traditional values. But really their values are so far right that they don't understand that the center is literally just about compassion. It has nothing to do with ideology beyond that. And I just find that fascinating that they can't see the forest through the trees, so to speak.
And it blows my mind too, as something they claim to be important in their lives. Like it's just like it's not even close anymore. Like I guess there was a point where you could have squinted and said, oh, like both parties, they're not quite following the teachings of Christ, but like even then, the things that they'll stand up for on the basis of their religion are very specific. They'll
Yeah.
say, yeah, we shouldn't have marriage between two men because that
Right.
would be against the teachings of God. But then when they say, oh, I don't know, 9/11, what should we do? We should retaliate. What would Jesus tell you to do, bro? Like,
Mhm.
what would he would say? Turn the other cheek. He was pretty clear about that one. What about the immigrants? What should we do with them? What did Jesus say? Do unto others as you would do unto him. Would you deport Jesus Christ? No, the fuck you wouldn't. So why are you deporting anyone else? It's the most basic, fundamental teachings.
Mhm.
Again, as I've said,
Yeah.
I think Jesus is a pretty cool philosopher. I think if you follow the teachings of Jesus Christ in a non-religious way, you're going to live to be a pretty morally upstanding person. But yeah, it's.
I'd still like to
mind-blowing
know where
me.
he was for all those years in the desert before
I
there
don't-
were any final.
Yeah, I mean,
judgments.
again, like there's some stuff in there that doesn't quite make sense now. You take away the magic shit and the philosophy, it's not bad.
Nah, I don't
I'm
have
teasing. I
nearly-
get it, John. I get it.
I don't have nearly as high of opinion of Jesus as John does. Like,
It is one of the biggest ways TJ and I differ.
Yeah,
I do
look,
like Jesus. He's a cool bro to me.
as far as a first century, rabbi in the Middle East, sure, I guess it's all right. But I mean, I'll pick any random philosopher from the 20th century over Jesus anytime. Wait, what do you got there? I mean, it's real basic shit. Hey, do unto others. I'm the first
Oh
person
my
to think of
God.
that. I am very important because I said the golden rule that people hadn't thought of thousands of years before. By the way, if you don't follow this rule, you will burn in agony for eternity. Now, I don't know. I just
It's
like, look,
marketing, TJ. It's all about that marketing.
I don't know. Like I will say, I do appreciate Jesus's hatred of rich people. That I'm
Yes.
on board with.
He was
Jesus,
very anti-capitalism.
Jesus never
He was.
said one kind word about rich people.
That's
His
right.
entire ministry. Props for that. Fewer props for saying cut off your hand if you're going to sin with it. No, I don't think I will. I think I'll keep sinning with this hand and the other one for the rest of my life, Jesus.
Oh, you're ambidextrous in that way. That's impressive. Good for you.
That's right. Yeah. I didn't say which sin I was talking about. Now, Jesus Christ. Holy shit. That was wow. That was good. But no, I've lost track. Oh, what do you got there?
Kyle said, John, are you suggesting people are ideologically consistent? I just want to reiterate this point. People are not ideologically consistent at all, ever. You can look at anyone and you'll find inconsistencies in their logic because we're all fallible human beings. Some people way more than others. However, when you devote your life to this shit, like
Yeah.
when you're a priest, when you're a preacher of scripture, I don't understand how you can arrive at any other conclusion than, yeah, what Trump is doing is horrific according to the teachings of Christ. And literally any other politician in the country would be better than him. Well, maybe not literally right now, but literally any other politician in the last 20 years would be better than him. Like it is kind of insane that people who dedicate their life to this ideology don't apply it thoroughly. It blows my mind.
That comment about ideological inconsistency, that's a really good one because he's right. We all do have inconsistent beliefs that don't necessarily coincide with logic. I'd like to know if you guys hold any like that because I have some. And I try to recognize it and act accordingly. For example, I am against the death penalty. All the data shows me that the death penalty doesn't work. But if you ask me how I felt about the death penalty, hell yeah. If you ask me how I felt about it, yeah, it makes perfect sense to me that if you take someone's life, you have forfeited yours. That seems just in my mind.
Mhm.
Now, I don't support it because I know it doesn't solve the problem. I know that, we execute a certain percentage of innocent people. I got it. But if you're asking me how I feel about it, yeah, I think it's great, but I'd never vote for it. So do you guys hold any like that? Putting you on the spot here for a subject you didn't sign up to talk about, but just out of curiosity.
No, I'm trying to think because I have taken a lot of time especially in my 20s, to figure out like what is my philosophy on life? What are the things that I try to aspire to, right? And I've always kind of settled on the not the harm none philosophy, but harm less, like harm reduction philosophy of do as little harm as possible. I think that's why I became a vegan. I think that's why I've tried to do just certain things. Nothing's perfect, right? But just certain things. So I've tried to reduce harm. But I think where I get tripped up a lot is capitalism, because I am actually, the older I get, becoming less and less interested in this system and see more and more harm that it's doing. And then I find myself every day trying to figure out ways to make money so I can retire early enough in my life so I can actually enjoy my life. And so I do feel a lot of confliction around, hating this system that is so exploitive and so wasteful and harms so many, and also not just participating in it, but being ambitious within it. And I think that sometimes is where I'm like, I don't know how to sit with this. And so I just sit with it because, like you said, people are inconsistent, but also we're not going to have everything figured out in all aspects of our life. But I think it's trying to find ways to reduce harm in the spaces that we exist in. But that's a challenge.
Yeah.
I think that I think that you just brought veganism and stuff. Like TJ and I discussed not too long ago. It might have been on Thursday or last Tuesday. That we both 100% agree with the vegans. They are morally correct all the way.
I wasn't trying to bring that up, by the way, as any other thing than just
no.
It's
but we're both going to eat meat, and either way, we're both going to do it. And you know what? I know that I can spend the extra money to get the more ethically sourced meat, which I sometimes do, but not all the time. And I recognize that is a moral inconsistency. And I genuinely am valuing my money over the ethical treatment of these animals. Yeah. I do that. I don't think I'm a good person for it. But I think that at the other side of that coin, which can be very, very abused, but is still true, is that there's only so much you can do. Sometimes you gotta put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on the guy next to you. Anyone who tries to live their entire life through a strict moral code is more likely than not to fail and contribute less to society and the greater good anyway. And that's not a hard rule. It takes constant awareness and trying to figure out how far you can push yourself, which is difficult to do, which is why I think a lot of people prefer religious moralities where there's hard rules and easy yeses, no's. But that is how, in my opinion, how you be a moral person. You recognize that you are fallible. You recognize that there's going to be sacrifices you need to make in your own moral ideology in order to just get through the day in a fucked up system. It's why I love. Have you ever seen The Good Place?
Oh my God, it's one of my all-time favorites.
One of my all-time favorite shows.
So good.
And honestly,
I was a philosophy major, so I really resonated with that show. I was like, how are they making this work? And yet here we are.
It's so good. It tells us real truth. You can't be 100% moral in our society. You cannot do it. It is impossible. Besides maybe just killing yourself. That's probably the easiest way to not do anything immoral.
Well, exactly. And I think that I think to your point, though, listening to both of you talking about veganism, not to bring it into focus, but it's a good example of, once again, a harm reduction model versus a harm none, because I think if we try to do a harm none, we're going to fail every day. But I think harm reduction is something we can all do. And it's do a meatless Monday, just do it one day a week. And you're now doing something for the planet, right? And for your body and for the animals. So there are ways of incorporating not just that, but many other things that you would consider, taking public transportation once a week instead of using your car. I think there's all these little things, but I think what frustrates me most is when we talk in that context, it goes back to this capitalist society of everything falls on the individual. And that's bullshit. And the reality is it's these systems that are much, 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 much bigger than us. All of the three of us could eat plants for the rest of our lives. It's not going to make a dent in carbon emissions. What's going to do that is ending the military industrial complex, right? Stop bombing other countries. change the whole system of energy. That's what we have to do. And we are not able to do that. So I think sometimes it's sort of like when we found out that recycling actually didn't do shit and most of it wasn't being recycled.
Yep.
My poor husband every week was bringing out a bag of, our cans because we just had to be good people. And now we're like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing, cans in now because it's just, there is a little bit of that feeling of nihilism. And so sometimes I think the harm reduction also just helps you feel better, which in and of itself is a way to be self-compassionate, which then allows you to be more compassionate towards other people. Because I do think compassion is the key ingredient to all of this. And that's what's really lacking in our government right now. And that's what really is scaring me, because we're normalizing the nastiest among us. And that is what I'm concerned about.
I think that it's lacking. It's actively rooted out. Like the government is now run by hostility. It is run. It is they just want to hurt people. That's their stated mission. It's quite insane.
Like garnishing wages for people that have student loans. Like, are you kidding me?
Wow. Yeah. That's like, I think that's a great point about how this focus on the individual has kind of led to the society we have today. I saw someone talking about, if you are, I don't know, say you're 28 years or 25 years old or whatever, and you didn't start paying attention to politics until recently, you would think politics was always like this. That, this just deep performative sociopathy that drives a lot of people and their politics, which is why Trump is so appealing to them, because I think a lot of folks have given up on the idea that life is ever going to get significantly better for them. I think a lot of people have given up on that. How many people realistically think that by the time they're 65 they could actually retire? How many people think that? It's the number grows smaller and smaller every day. Also, I wanted to mention John. I do like John's statement of that, how he would be a vegan and it is the moral choice, but it's just so hard, folks. It's so difficult. I can't do. I know the morality.
I've been 15 years now. I'm just saying. Before
John is not as tough made as tough as stuff as you are, Natalie.
I'm sending you both recipes. Granted, get ready.
Granted, that's my position too. But John said it, so it was funny hearing it out loud. But it's also like, because we do it every day. We do it all the time. And you're right. There is no perfect morality you can live. You have to make some sort of sacrifices, and sacrifice is the wrong word because we're the ones benefiting. For example, choice. If you eat chocolate at any time, you were benefiting from slave labor, guaranteed, 100%. Like, none of the chocolate you eat, a chocolate bar would cost $8 if it was charged what it was actually worth. All your electronics should cost 4 times more. Your clothes should cost more. Like, there's no way you could actually function in this society and survive if you tried to live more. Now, it doesn't make these actions okay, but acknowledging that is important. That's the part that really gets me, is that people will oftentimes, like conservatives, or not just conservatives, a lot of people, they'll pretend that they don't have racist or misogynistic thoughts, or inclinations or suspicions. It's like, if you just admitted it, you'd be fine. Just recognize reality there. Also, you mentioned The Good Place. My favorite part about The Good Place was the name of the stores in The Good Place. They always had really clever names. And the best one by a country mile was Biscotti Pippin, obviously. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing that they had right there. And with energy, this is like, well, not energy, but conservation with recycling and all that. You ever see someone stumble on the correct position for the wrong reason? Republicans do this with paper straws. Yes, paper straws are annoying. They're obnoxious. I hate them and everything. And also miss the point. Miss the point. They try to put the onus on you, the individual. Right. Hey, make your life a little bit, more annoying to pretend you're saving the planet so corporations don't actually have to. And John, I think I know your opinion on this, but Natalie, what's your? Well, actually, you guys are both in Pennsylvania, so nuclear energy. I don't know. I am all in favor of it. I think that using magic rocks to make water boil is a great idea. I don't know why it's not more common, but Natalie, what are your thoughts on that?
I interviewed a couple of people around this whole thing with nuclear energy, and once again, I'm not opposed to it. What I'm opposed to is who's going to benefit from it, who's going to claim ownership to it, and is it actually going to benefit the masses, or how is it going to be used? And what frustrates me with some of these sort of newer forms of technology and energy, not that nuclear is, but newer in the sense that they're debating on whether to use it, is I interviewed this guy from, I think it was called New Sun Rising, I think, but it was all about like solar panels. And he was saying in Pennsylvania, people would think like we don't get enough sun to be able to harness the energy of the sun for people's homes. And he said that's totally false. And what he's been doing is trying to work with community leaders and foundations to get grants to give them to people in Section 8 housing and in low-income housing, in rundown neighborhoods that in Pittsburgh that nobody cares about, and get them completely energy independent. And there's been all of this pushback. And that really pisses me off because he's talking about a energy revolution where you and the people on your block would go in together on panels, and it would be enough not only to just do your whole block for a year, but you'd be able to store it and sell it to companies, and then they could use it. So your community would make revenue, not as a tax, but as an actual like revenue stream. And you could use it to upgrade your community in different ways. And I was like, why aren't we doing this everywhere? And why are you getting so much pushback from this in Pennsylvania? And then I thought, well, duh, Natalie, we're like the Saudi Arabia of the United States when it comes to energy, like production. I mean, the fracking that goes on here is, talk about immoral. It's disgusting. The level of oil and, the level of fracking that we're doing and what's being shipped out of this state, it has nothing to do with making our communities better. They've left communities in shambles after these fracking spaces have basically usurped up everything that they could get out of it and have moved on. We've got one of the worst cases of rates of childhood cancers in the country right here in my own backyard. And nothing changes because we're still insisting on these same idiots running things when it comes to our energy production. And so when I hear nuclear energy, I want to get excited, but I also have a deep cynicism about it because we were told to get excited about fracking. We were told it was safe, 20 years ago. We were told all these things. Oh, it's going to lower your gas prices. We have not benefited at all in this state. All we've done is harm our water, our air, and our children's health and ourselves. And now we're sitting across looking at this new horizon of energy production. And I keep thinking to myself about that interview I did with that guy. And I'm like, how do we get solar energy in every low-income community so that they can become more self-sufficient and not have to pay any utility bill? And I think that's what really scares a lot of the utility companies, because then you wouldn't need them anymore. And so there's so many powers that be when we talk about systems that really need to be uprooted. And that's going to take a real collective change in consciousness. And I don't know when that is going to happen. So I know that's not really answering your question, but that's how I kind of feel about where we're headed with nuclear. I'm worried it's going to go the same direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think with nuclear, it's just build as much as humanly possible and figure out the rest later, because it is by far the safest form of energy that we have. One of the most cost-effective forms of energy that we have, the cleanest form of energy that we have, and we should just build as much of it as we can. And it really upsets me when I see climate conscious people pretend to be against it, because what are you even in this for? I'm just like, you must be getting paid right now to say these things, because all of the science indicates, nuclear is the safest form of energy that we have. It's insane. But to speak more broadly to what you're saying, Natalie, energy is, and I've never actually said this on this show because we don't get too much into this often, but like, to me,
don't worry, it's just us.
Yeah, no, we're leaning in. Let's go.
Oh no, well, it's nothing like scandalous or anything, because I haven't talked about this particular thing on the show. But I feel like energy is the dividing line between when we can be stop being capitalist. Because as long as energy is a finite resource, communism will never work. Like in order for a true, fully developed form of communism to work, you need to have no more resource scarcity. And that just can't happen as long as energy is scarce. And the more we can do to just push more energy, the faster everything shores up. And you're right. There's a reason why entrenched energy companies are against things like solar panel communities. Solar has made such gains and strides in my lifetime. The bell curve, it's exponential curve in the amount of energy that we're able to generate per solar panel. And we are very quickly within all of our lifetimes, assuming we don't die, assuming we don't meet with JD Vance, right? That we are going to have enough solar energy to power everything in the country very easily. And if we made a collective effort to get there immediately, we could have it in the next 20 years. If we made that effort, if the people that Natalie were mentioning weren't holding us back from doing so. We have also programs like ITER that are studying nuclear fusion, which if we can get nuclear fusion right, which also that one's a little scary because we could just all die. But like if we can get that right, that's infinite energy, just infinite energy. We will never run out of it. And once energy is infinite, it's just a matter of time before we can utilize that energy to create whatever we need. Suddenly resources aren't scarce, and suddenly our entire economic system makes absolutely no sense if resources aren't scarce anymore. And energy is the place where it exists within the model of capitalism that we have incentive to push more and more energy. I mean, obviously you have the entrenched powers who are stopping it, but everyone, you don't have to be a communist, you don't have to be a socialist to be like, yeah, we should produce more energy. We should produce as much of it as possible. The incentives are there to do that. And it is, in my opinion, one of the fastest, most effective tracks to changing the capitalist system. Just go and to build as much energy as you possibly can.
I think that's where I'm just so frustrated right now with the course that we're on with this country and this drill baby drill energy from the Trump regime and this determination to turn the clock back 50, 100, 150, 250 years, because I know this is going to sound so stupid, but it's just like, guys, we could all be having so much fun.
Yeah.
Like instead, we're just trying to be cruel to each other and hurt each other and treat each other like garbage. Why? We've done this before. It's never worked. You will not win. Maybe it won't be in our lifetime, but the pendulum, like my grandmother always used to say, it swings one way, it will swing back. And when it really swings back, I think there's going to be a huge shift in the way that we live our lives, to your point. And I think it's going to be very energy focused, but it's also going to have a real lens on human rights. And I think those things, to your point, are intricately tied. And so to me, it's just, can we just like move forward? Because we all know, you guys, the Nazis are going to lose again. Like it's going to happen. It's going to suck that we're going to go through this again. But I'd like to get to the other side of this, because I'd actually would rather much be having like a good time here while I'm on this little blue spinning dot. Thank you very much. Like what?
Yeah. Straight up not having a good time, bro. Yeah. And Zeke, you said, I did not know that other thing about nuclear energy. It was something energy. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
That's fusion energy. Is probably
the fusion. Okay.
Nuclear energy. In case you're wondering, I'm not a physicist, but the layman's definition here, like nuclear energy, what they do is they split an atom in the power plants that you see, and they use that energy to heat up water, which creates steam, which spins turbines, which produce energy. Right? Fusion energy is the opposite. It is combining two atoms together. It's what
that's why it's a little more dangerous.
Yes, a little more. The other one is also dangerous. Don't get me wrong. The fusion energy is like, oh God, what happens here? Because that's what the sun does, right? And the sun produces more energy than we could ever consume as a human species. That we can even dream of. And we can create tiny little mini suns here. It's entirely, I would actually say it's more likely than not that by the time I die, we will have sustainable fusion reactions that are producing that energy. I don't know when that'll be, but I know the progress that's been made in my lifetime is pretty significant. And again, once you have no limitations on energy, why have scarcity of anything? Like it just all of these, like what's Natalie saying is like, well, I would rather have fun. And Natalie, I agree with you I think that we should reduce the work week, all of these things. But then there is also a little part of my brain, and maybe this is a logical inconsistency that TJ was talking about. I'm not really sure, but there is a part of me, it's like, oh, well, we should be working as hard as possible as long as people are still dying horrific deaths. Even if you want to make the argument, oh, we should reshape the way that we work and restructure the incentives we have for working on things. It does still seem to me that we should be putting forth our best effort to improve the world because there's so much wrong with it. But that's like once you have things like unlimited energy,
but I think
you have these things that suddenly goes out the window. Why work at all? We have everything we need at our fingertips.
Yeah, I think you're never going to. I think you're always going to have people want to contribute something to society, and I think that's always a misnomer when people say, oh, people just want to hand out da-da-da-da. No, I don't believe that's true. Everyone that I've worked with when I was a social worker, nobody wanted a handout. They wanted a hand up, right? They want to contribute something. But the level of stress that everybody is under just to make those ends meet, there's no reason that people can't work 20 hours a week instead of 60 hours a week and actually have time to read a book and spend time with their granddaughter and, be with their dad and live their lives. I think to your point, because I think we've all internalized capitalism, and we would be foolish to say we haven't, because it's a system that's been pressing on us since we were born, right? And so this idea that, we have to work, that's just that puritanical colonizer shit that was brought over here that we've never really rooted out or made an attempt to root out, and instead of just tried to repress. And I think that's just the work you have to do inside so that then you can allow yourself joy. And I think that in and of itself is resistance to that system, And on that note, guys, I have to go.
Oh no, Natalie, you have to stay for the end of the show. Can we close it out here, John?
Yeah, we can close it out here. I mean, we don't actually have to do the normal closeout, DJ, because this is not our Thursday show. But
all right. Well, you know what? Since Natalie is departing, I do want to let Natalie and everyone else know that today's episode was sponsored by TJ's $5 bottles of water.
Undercutting me, you bastard.
If you find yourself in a thirsty situation and you don't want to taste the exploitation, grab yourself a bottle of TJ's $5 water. Catch you later, Natalie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my God, you guys.
I didn't realize you had a bit set up, TJ.
Yeah, I know, right? Old TJ is not as dumb as everyone says he is. He can plan a good joke here and there. Yeah, it happens. So
that's great. Well, I also have to get going.
Happy Earth Day, folks. Thanks, God.
I have to get going immediately. But TJ, we'll see each other Thursday. Natalie, thank you very much.
Oh my God, I love being with you guys.
Later, you guys.
Bye.